Hi, welcome to Dwayne's Guitar Lessons. I'm instructor Dwayne Jenkins. In today's video lesson, we're going to talk about the infamous G chord. How we're going to form it. And the reason why we're going to talk about this particular chord in this lesson is because it's very popular in a lot of songs. And I get a lot of people asking me, well, what's the best way to form it? Well, there's all kinds of different ways you can form a G chord. There's all kinds of different ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of these ways that you can form the G chord. And then that way you can make a decision on what might be best for you, because everybody's a little bit different. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, now the G chord is played right here around the 3rd fret. And there's a lot of different ways you can form it, okay, different fingerings that you can use. Now when I first started out a long time ago learning in books, I was told the common way to form it is like this. With your 2nd finger on the 6th string, 3rd fret, your 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, and then your 3rd finger, ring finger, on the 1st string of the 3rd fret, okay? That's probably your most common way of playing it. And I've also seen people take the ring finger, put it on the 2nd string, 3rd fret, and then put their pinky on the 1st string to give it a little bit more of a fuller sound, okay? As you can see, that just gives you a little bit fuller of a sound. So those are 2 ways you can play it. You can play it with like this. You can also play it like this, okay? Now that way is great. It's a great way of playing it, but when you get to a C chord, which 2 chords that are real common in songs are a G and C, you have to change your hand positioning to this. Okay, so as you can see, my hand, the wrist of my hand is moving back and forth. That's a little, it's kind of difficult sometimes, especially when you're starting out trying to play songs. If you're going from G to C real quick. It takes a little while to get those motor skills developed. Now, what I think is an easier way of doing it, and this is something you kind of think about, is if you're playing a C chord like this, if you take your 2 fingers here, your 3rd and 2nd finger, and you bring them up to the 6th and 5th string, and if you bring your pinky down, if you can do this, a lot of people have a hard time with this, but it's a way of doing it, then you can play the G chord with these fingers here. With your ring finger on the top, your 2nd finger on the 5th string, and your pinky down on the 1st string. Okay, and your 1st finger is off. Now the benefit of playing it like this is you can bring these 2 fingers down, bring this one down, there's your C chord. You go to your G and your C pretty quick, pretty easy. Of course it takes a little while to build up the motor skills, but nonetheless you can still do it. So for me personally, if I'm going from a G to a C, if I'm going from a G major chord, then I'll play the G with these fingerings like this. So the only fingers I have to, that I have to really be concerned about is the pinky and the 1st finger. Okay. So that's a good way of playing it as well. Now a lot of people also play the G with just the pinky and the ring finger on the first 2 strings, and then your 3rd finger on the 6th string, and they take out the 5th string, just like this. So a lot of people have a good way of doing it that way as well. Okay, so it kind of depends on how you want to play it. Now that's a good way of playing it. If you can go to the D chord, for me personally, I can take this finger, bring it down here, and form the natural D chord. Okay, so a lot of times you got to just kind of look at different ways to play it, different ways to form it. You know. Now me personally, let's say I'm playing instead of playing my C major chord, I go to play my C9 chord like this, okay? Now it'd be good to play the G like this then, because all I have to do is bring my fingers up like this, okay? See how easy you can play those 2 chords? By just moving your fingers, minimal movement principle. Also play the D chord, and I never even have to move this finger right here. So this finger, I can play the D chord, the C chord, put my pinky down, play the G chord. Okay? So in that respect, I would play the G like this. But if I'm going to my natural C, or maybe a C7, something like that, It's all kinds of different C's and stuff. You can play different chords. But what I'm saying is that you want to look at different ways that you can play your chords, okay? Especially that G chord. Play it like this. You can play it with these fingers. You can play it like this. It's all kinds of different ways you can form it. You just want to look at different ways of doing that, okay? Now I like to be able to form it like this as well with the third finger on top, the ring finger, because sometimes you might have to play a G7, which means that you're going to have to bring your first finger up here to the first fret, first string, as you can see right there. So now my pinky's off, have my ring finger on the 6th string, my second finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret, and my index finger on the 1st fret, 1st string. So if you can get used to that chord shape like that, then it's easy to just go to C real quick, see? To G7, C, G7, C, G7. Or even a natural G, if you could get that pinky in place, okay? So that's what I'd recommend. Try some of those different ways of forming chords. And it's not just the G chord, but other chords as well, you know? Form some of those chords. Look at different ways you can form them because it makes a big difference on what you're going to next. Okay? Alright, so there we have it. Some different ways you can play your G chord. I highly recommend that you look those over. Try some different fingerings with your fingers. Kind of look at what works best for you. Because the thing of it is, when you're playing songs, you never really know what chords you're going to go to next. Now, one chords that are real common with songs are your G to the D or the G to the C. Those are real common in a lot of songs, G and C or G and D, okay? So think about how you're going to get from one chord to the next. And what's the easiest way to do it with minimal movement principle, okay? That's what you really want to think about, all right? So you might have to, in some songs, it might be best to play it, you know, with these fingers here like this. Some songs it might be better to play with these fingers here. Sometimes it might be better to do it like this. Just depends on the song, what chord you're going to next, okay? So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Check that out. If you like the channel, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell for future notifications. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below. Let me know maybe some different fingerings that you've tried with your G chord. The G chord's always kind of tricky, so I wanted to make a video on that. Had some students ask me about that. And be sure to visit my website at DwaynesGuitarLessons.com and join my guitar club. I've got a lot of great tips there, some training tips for you that'll really help you out with your guitar playing, all right? So work on your G chord, and until the next time, you, my friend, take care.
Audio Jungle.